After a long hiatus, we are back with another conversation.
How long has it been?
Well, there's only
3
the now
months?
moment, so
Yeah, good point.
there's been,
That's right, welcome back.
welcome back. That's one of the great things about the web is that there is no, especially when on demand, it's hardly relevant. In fact, I got to stop even like saying things in videos that anchor it to a past moment, because the minute it's uploaded, it's no longer now.
No doubt.
Or it has a potential to be now unless you anchor it.
Yeah, that's some interesting universe matter on your shoe.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that is.
I don't know.
I'll just take that off.
Yeah.
Not get that. The reason that we've been pulled to this moment of recording after a lull, a metaphorical lull,
Right.
is a certain theme has come up in several conversations in both of our lives separately. That of the difference between intellectual knowledge and experiential awareness knowledge. And we were struggling with trying to figure out what the language even was for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, so the thing that really hit me was when I went to see an Indian guru speak in LA, and he was talking about meditation and how it can bring you to this awareness of the divine and all these things like that. And he was talking about how connection with the one and interconnectivity of everything. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, got it, absolutely. I'm nodding my head. I'm like, I agree 100%. Not only that, I've given this talk. This is the same thing I talk about every week. I'm like, but what's the difference between this gentleman, who is seen as a living incarnate of the divine, and myself, who, was 3 sheets to the wind when I was listening to his lecture. No, not really. I was with my mom. But I
2.5 sheets.
right. But it became very clear that everything he was saying was words, was intellectual knowledge, and that you could study that forever and not have. He's basically just giving you a map to get to a place where ideally you would have an experience so that you would know what he's talking about.
Yeah, there are, in this last year, there have been many of those times where you without thinking, but for whatever reason, at that moment, realize what I call a fundamental truth. Things that we kind of know, we're like, yes, we've known this. But until that moment, you didn't feel it.
Right.
It wasn't, yeah, like I said, I've been describing it sort of like a difference between believing is the key word, it's the difference between believing and knowing, or the difference between believing and feeling it, or between believing and having that be so fundamentally your platform that you're operating from, that there's a very big difference there. And it's hard to explain that to people who haven't noticed that in some other part of their life.
Right.
How do you explain that paradigm? They're like, yeah, I believe it. I'm like, no, I understand that, but you're not practicing it. You say, I believe this. You say, I'm a Christian, right? And then I'm doing things that are clearly against Christ. Or I'm I'm a doctor, but they're smoking like a chimney. And you're like, yeah, but there's some part of you that's not getting that this thing is really not what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, you said, the way you said, how do you explain it? And it's like, well, that's where you lost it.
Right.
You can't, the difference is, the way I was describing it, as head knowledge and heart knowledge. And head knowledge, you get to head knowledge through a process of logical steps, explanations, and to the point where it makes sense. You get to the end and you're like, okay, this is what I understand now. Heart knowledge, you don't get there in that same path. It either just opens up. Usually I think that's the only way.
That's right. It's the key. You can only learn it in the present.
Right.
Right? That's the other thing. That you're in the present when those kinds of things come to you.
And those are the awarenesses that... And some people who have, faith in whatever their faith is, it's a heart knowledge kind of faith. Even crazy beliefs. But
Right.
but it's not a belief that you can convince. That's why you can't argue with someone.
That's right.
Because there is no logical argument that could convince me other than what the things that I know in my heart knowledge place.
That's right. But your head knowledge you can be talked out of.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. That's a perfect, and that takes us to the conflict in the Middle East. That's why forever, for millennia, there's been no solution,
Right.
and there will never be a solution, because there's nothing to argue. And some people call that fanaticism. And I guess, I don't know, these days, I guess I understand that and don't really blame it. I mean, clearly there are things that some fanatics believe that we, the rest of society, are afraid of, hurt by, whatever, terrorized by. But to them, that's their fundamental truth, and somehow they got there.
See, that's the thing that's hard for me, because my heart truths,
Right. All seem
cannot explain how any other heart truth could have hate
Yeah, I know.
in it.
I know.
But I have to accept that I cannot understand other people's heart truths.
I agree, and I've thought of it the exact same way like that, which is how do you get to those different things? And by the way, I was trying to explain some Burning Man stuff to some virgins I told you that I've got going. I was trying to explain to them that the burn isn't all about pink heart, which was something that I was confused about, that you explained to me.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that, where you had to explain to me. No, that's not what Burning Man is about. Burning Man is not about love and peace and kind of all the stuff that you and I love. There are the dark people at Burning Man. They're not bad people. They're wonderful people. They're lovely people. They're not dangerous. I never felt threatened by them, and a lot of them are our friends. Right? We like pink, they like black. We like love, and they like love, but they don't want to be in a love camp, right?
Right.
But they are quite evolved and aware and present, and for some reason, there's that light and dark.
Mm-hmm.
Just like everywhere else we tend to find. And maybe within the universal energy.
There is no good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
That's right.
I mean, they decay, death, darkness, light. It all exists all the time. So I guess it's hard for me to understand how anger and hatred can be good. But I also recognize that every perception I have, especially perceptions that in this realm of heart, in our head, everything we're doing right now is a head conversation.
Right.
So in the realm of head, I can never get to an understanding of the heart.
Right. Well, we're using, first of all, we've talked about this before, we're using words.
Right.
And as soon as you use words, all meaning is lost, because words have no resolution. The resolution is so 8-bit, trying to explain 32-bit stuff.
Right.
Right? You say, there's some blue dots, and the difference is, no, I'm trying to explain the sheen on the ocean. Right? And the moving stuff. You can't really explain that, right? But yeah, the light and dark piece seems to be something that I too don't understand, but I see it, and I believe, again, the people that I've seen that are dark are still very much, they're not in their head dark. They seem to be dark, but it's not negative.
I have a hard time seeing or understanding how living in a dark space is a more enjoyable experience.
I get it. I'm the same.
I just don't. Where was I? There's that wonderful Burning Man graphic that was someone just made and put on Flickr, and that spread like wildfire wildfire through the actually it spread like wildflowers.
Exactly, right.
And so and so I got linked all over the place, and so some of the comments on Flickr, you know, were these really negative, and you know, people just cranky and snarky and just attacking, and I was like, what a weird instinct, you know, to like see something that a lot of people see as like Burning Man to a lot of people is a wonderful, beautiful, you know, it's like a church to a lot of people. So the instinct is to.
Well, I didn't read the comments. What were the comments?
That's something like, you know, oh, how come there's no stat for self-absorbed, ignorant, or something like that. And I'm just like really, that's how you want to spend your time and energy. That's your job, is to make sure that people who are happy get you to them. Like, how can that be a pleasurable existence?
Yeah.
And then I also remember, I've been snarky. I've had chapters of my life when I've been snarky. I've been in a movie theater when I was a kid and yelled things at the screen thinking I was funny.
Right.
And so, I don't know. But we digress. The thing is, let me read something.
Yeah, did you find your quote?
This whole... So after, you know, a couple weeks of thinking about this stuff, about the difference of... This, he just goes on and on about it. And he's very much... comes from a... He calls it the infinite way, but it's a Christian-based concept. But he's definitely not attached to that. He says... The best that any teaching can do for us is to lead us to that place where we realize that none of the concepts are correct. The only correct thing is the experience of God itself.
Yeah.
He just goes on and on about it, but it's you know, it's and he even says, like, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Depending on what you are and how you are, this could take you years and years and years of just studying books. But as soon as you cross over and go from head knowledge to heart knowledge, you're going to go, oh my God, it's so different.
Well, and look, and that was... Burning Man's actually an awesome example of that as well. Because, and I've been telling people this, they're like, oh, I've read a bunch of stuff, I think I'm pretty ready.
Right.
And I'm like, no, you're ready, you will be fine. But it is nothing like what you believe it is.
Right.
Right? And when you get there, and then you're like, you'll stumble upon something, you're like, oh, now I understand what they meant. By there are structures there that blow your mind. What that term means, where you literally feel your mind go.
Right.
And when you see that stuff happen over and over again, there's a lot of this. Oh yes, I've heard of this before. That's to me what feels like when you get that realization feeling where like, oh no, I now understand a bunch of things I was sort of hearing. I sort of believe they were trying to explain this, but they weren't trying to explain that.
Right.
But now I can see how that's how I would explain this, but it feels very different. And that delta seems to be that thing that's another kind of sign that you're having that kind of an experience.
I'm thinking, I'm liking more that the logic, the ideas, the head stuff is all a map. And so, like, you can get a layout, you can understand, you can plot out your journey, you can say, so that when you come upon something, you're like, this is what they meant. But no matter how much you look at a map, you will not understand what the Grand Canyon looks and feels like.
That's right.
It's impossible.
That's awesome. That's totally right. I love that. That's awesome. You're exactly right. Yep. When you get there, you will know.
Right.
Right. And you will recognize it as being something you've seen before. Which recognizes, oh, I understood it intellectually, but now I see that it's real.
You know, it's even more than that, because the map that you've been studying, and that is your culture, is what actually puts the experience into context when you go back to try to explain it. That's why mystics in all different cultures they explain these experiences in different ways, because they go back and, according to the map that they've been raised on, it is the Virgin Mary, or it is, you know, whatever, Buga, the monkey man, or whatever.
Yeah, that's totally true. Huh. That's totally true. And you said the map that you've been studying, which is right, but it's almost like these are things you sort of know, but they haven't, to me at least, they haven't been something I've focused on. They're typically things where I just, in a moment of meditation, where I discover this truth, and yes, I knew about it, but it was sort of like overlooked. It may have been overlooked, maybe the wrong word. It wasn't really focused on. I didn't really focus on it. Didn't realize how important it was, but it was clearly something that I had learned.
See, I have a very, very few examples of things that I consider to be things that I know here. You know, like there's a lot of things that I have a degree of head knowledge that I have massive comfort, but still, when anxiety kicks in or push to shove, I have to remind myself. You know, that's why my spiritual daily practice is about pulling myself back to certain types of awarenesses. Now, there's other things where I know here that unless I get head trauma, I'm not gonna
Right.
lose that.
Right.
But there's very few. It's like my feelings about death, my feeling about life purpose. I never question those things.
Okay.
Things about like money fears, you know, abundance. Those things, like I have yet to have that all will be well heart trust, so that you have to keep reminding me of that everything's going to be okay.
Dude, I was thinking about that today when I was driving to San Diego. I was thinking, because I've been looking for these apartments, and even though financially, you know, I'm doing fine now, but I really think I'm at a point. I was thinking about kind of, you know, saving and getting ready for retirement. Something came on the radio and said something about retirement, and I was like, saving for retirement, not living now. And it took me right back to my dad's thing to me, my suggestion, right? Knowledge of live while you're young. There's only now. And if you live now, and truly live now, you will be, by the time you retire, I believe this, I now feel like I know this, but by the time you retire, you will either have said, oh my God, I've lived an awesome life, it doesn't matter what happens, right? Mm-hmm. I'm ready to die, basically. Or the universe is aligned and you continue to live in the now, doing stuff that you do. And this mentality of I need to sacrifice today so I can retire when I'm 60 and be safe. It's all about being safe. It's not like, oh, I want to live lavishly. It's like people just want to be safe. Right. What's there to be safe for? What are you safe for? Now, there's only now. And which is totally different than the way I was before I went to the burn. The burn was a huge part of doing that for me.
That's awesome.
And it's awesome.
There is no, I mean, safety is
fear-driven.
It's a myth.
Exactly.
There is no. I mean, I was watching some nature show about volcanoes and stuff. And you know, when you start looking at these Earth disastery type thing, we call them disasters. You know, it's just basically you know,
it's just Earth doing
it's the breathing. You know, it's the Earth breathing and doing its thing, right? And it's like, wow. So the Earth goes and adjusts itself in its chair, and 200,000 people die. You know, and it's like, it's just, you can't be safe from that. It just happens. So 200,000 people, their 401k plans, if they had one, it's
right.
Like, what was the, you know, they and so I sometimes try to keep a balance of, like, I think you can live in the now and also be aware that you're going to have now moments in the future.
Yeah.
But right.
But live in the now still. The majority of your focus is on the now. Well, there's so many people whose majority of their focus is not now at all. The majority of people sacrifice the now for the future, for tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, and that's, I mean, Eckhart says that people ask me, like, well, how do you just, I mean, if you can't just live in the now, right? I got rent. And his thing was like, we are so out of whack in terms of the amount of time we actually live in the now that most people live so much in the future and past that occasionally we visit the now.
Right.
I mean, try to meditate if you don't meditate, try to meditate for 5 minutes and get to the now for 5 minutes. He says, if you can shift that so you live in the now and then visit the future.
Right.
So yeah, I have rent. I'll think about, what do I need to do to make sure that's in place? Okay, there's things I can do now about that. Okay, then come back to the now, take those actions, and then be back in now. Like, that shift, you're not totally hedonist, But
Right.
that shift is so. I mean, it's so far from where I am, and it's so massive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think
When you haven't, since I've known you, you haven't been, you got there before I met you. I mean, you've been getting there more and more and more, but you got there before I met you. I just got here. I mean, I just freaking, I mean, not this moment, but this year. I just arrived.
Dude, you're a different person than a year ago. I mean, yeah, when you came back from Burning Man, I mean, the degree of just vibrational peace from being in the now and not having concern about and what's happened from that place. Did your future fall apart? No. Everything works out great. This guy, I mean, his whole thing in living by grace, the idea is that almost what you said of like, if you live in the present and let go of your attachments and fears and start living in love and as you do, you know, someone needs, you need this, well then I want you to give it. And if you start living on like this, you will get to be retirement age and you will never have needs. You will never have wants.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I had a vision of is I sort of saw the world from above, and I saw outlines of kind of the waterways, almost like a marina, and the people are clinging to their little spot. They're trying to get a little spot of the marina for themselves, and they're holding on to it. They're in the water, like treading water, you know, holding on to the rail. And that's their thing. I need to make sure I've got a nice stable rail to hold on to. Life is making sure you hold on to the rail, because if you let go, you're going to drown. Right? And die.
Right.
Don't lose the rail. Work hard. Teach your kids to work hard. And then there are some people that go out and leave the rail and go swimming and diving and doing amazing things. There are very few of them floating around while everybody else is just getting more and more in that rail. By the way, it's the book also, right? Hope for the Flowers.
Right.
It's the same story.
Yeah.
Which is, you have to surrender the tree and go play and become a butterfly. Or you have to surrender that fear of letting go of the rail and go swimming. And by the way, initially when you do that, you freak out. Right? I mean, there was a time after Burning Man, I've told people about this, where, I mean, I felt some pretty low lows, right? And I think that was the true shedding of the ego before you could rebuild it, not from a place of fear, but from a place of grace. And you're not rebuilding the ego anymore. You've dropped the ego, you've become bare, and now you're starting to get your colors back again that are truly you instead of, you know, the programmed you.
That things have been painted on.
Yeah. And those times felt, but they clearly didn't feel good, but they didn't feel horrible. But it felt like you were swimming and drowning in some ways, right? But then you start swimming, and you start being able to jump like a dolphin, and it becomes awesome. And then you're like looking at those poor people that you were, clinging on desperately, painfully, saying, "Oh no, I don't have enough of this rail to do." While we're playing here and saying, you don't need a rail.
But the problem is, when you're saying you don't need a rail, that's a head knowledge information.
Right.
And it's almost impossible to let go of the rail until you have a heart.
Absolutely.
The heart knowledge. And that's what the surrender is. That's faith.
Yeah.
That's faith, is when you go, I can't be, there's no argument that will convince me that, all right.
To let go of that rail.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is no argument. It's gotta be that.
That's why so many people only get to that place when they hit rock bottom.
Right.
Because it's only when they have nothing, they have no more option to, I mean, that was not my experience, but
Right.
I think that a lot of people, it's only when, I have no other choices, so
Right.
I guess I'm going to surrender.
Right.
So, Burning Man is 1 month away. This will be your 1 year birthday.
Awesome. I'm gonna cry. I mean, not now, but at Welcome Home.
I've been crying a lot lately. Cried multiple times today.
Really?
Yeah, I enjoy crying.
I'm still not there.
Yeah.
That's actually.
But it's part of how I mean, my mom cries all the time. It's just
So
like,
my mom cries all the time.
Really? You see, like when I'm like, she's like, no.
Yeah. And it's not that I don't know what it is. It's not, I'm sure it's not that I don't like it. I don't like it. But it's, I don't know. I wonder if I'm still afraid of it. I don't know, maybe.
You're trying to say you're tougher than me?
That's an interesting one. That's, look at me. I've been joking. Look at me. How can I push anybody around, right? But yeah, so it's a month away, and it is my birthday. There's no doubt about that. The date of my exiting the womb is, my mom never taught me. I mean, she never considered hers to be valuable and considered mine to be valuable. She did consider mine to be valuable, but I never believed it because I didn't see her considering hers to be valuable. So I never saw the birthday as being an overly meaningful day. But my birthday at Burning Man, that's awesome. You're exactly right. That's my new birthday.
Well, and we were
It's
talking
awesome.
about it. It's almost kind of like the burn week is kind of like the last week. Like the week from Christmas to New Year's is that kind of festive-y, and that's kind of like leading up to the burn, and then that last week, and then burn night, and the temple is kind of it's like it's way more significant in terms of cycles of my year.
It's awesome, dude. I can't.
So we wish you a merry burn night. We'll see you next time.